Either you got a lazy eye or lack of respect. Which is it, boy?
I ain't got no lazy eye. No respect for the likes of you.
Well, maybe when your mother's finished mourning your father, I'll keep her in black on your behalf.
Should you buy Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2022? I made a Red Dead Redemption 2 review back in 2021, and when I reviewed Red Dead 2, I was a bit burnt out on open world stuff, so I thought, it's been a year. Red Dead Online wasn't really my thing, so let's go back to Red Dead 2 and spend 30 hours playing it once again, and man, it's one hell of a Western experience. Red Dead 2 is nearly 4 years old already, the time passed way too quick, and it only feels like yesterday when it originally released, but it's 2022 now, plenty of games have come out that could rival it potentially, so let's review this bad boy and let's just get on with it. We'll be talking story and gameplay with no spoilers, so feel free to skip to what you care about using the timestamps. Red Dead Redemption 2 has been praised all over for its story, many calling it one of the greatest stories told in the gaming industry, and it's pretty clear why. Red Dead Redemption that released in 2010 was also praised for the same thing, but the sequel just blows it to pieces. Redemption 2 pulls you into one of the most immersive, gut-wrenching stories I've ever played, and is easily the best story told in an open world setting for me, but I'll mention why I said open world in just a minute. You play as Arthur Morgan, a member of the Dutch Vandalen gang, on the run from the Pinkertons after a failed job, desperately trying to escape the New World. And to escape you need money, and a plan. Have faith, Arthur! Now, as much as I love The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima and many other games, I have to admit that Arthur Morgan to this day is still the best written character I've ever played as. I know that could be subjective, but for me, he just is. There really is something about his character that just feels right. He's a consistent character from start to finish. His arc feels natural and not forced in the slightest, which was really helped by the length of the story, because given that valuable time you can really craft a wonderful character arc for a character many people would hate, especially after the things you do throughout the story, but Rockstar smashed it when balancing the violent acts of robbery, murder, kidnapping, etc. with those heartfelt, slow-paced moments, diving just deep enough into Arthur's character without force-feeding it all to you. Arthur is a wonderfully crafted character, and Rockstar really had a hard job topping John Marston, but they managed it and I'm really glad they did. You spend most of the story going place to place trying to get money to escape to the dream Dutch has for his gang of outlaws, and while it's a fairly simple plot, it's the characters that make this game one of the best in the industry. Dutch, Hosea, Sadie, Lenny, Micah, John, Miss Grimshaw, and the entire gang pretty much are written with so much care you can't help but feel the passion leaping through the screen. That being said, some of the gang members get a little less screen time, like Leopold Strauss, who's also a piece of shit, so they can't balance it all, which is unfortunate, but they did try as much as they could to get all of the characters involved. It's really clear they really wanted this gang to work. Now, I'm biased to westerns. I love a good western, but even with my acknowledgement of bias, I really don't think it would change my opinion without the bias. The meticulous focus on polish and detail both in the script and execution just can't be praised enough. Red Dead Redemption 2 delivers a story that is more effective than most films and shows due to the sheer amount of content and story there actually is. This is why gaming is taking over at the moment, billions going in and out every year, and it's great to see for games like this. Obviously, you've got microtransactions, but I made a Red Dead Online review, you can go watch that for my opinion on that stuff. Due to the length, it feels like almost every character gets plenty of screen time, fleshing out their characters and giving them something to do. The gang element is so important, and while it's not perfect when it comes to gameplay and that big old word ludo narrative dissonance, it still feels like so much care went into it. However, Red Dead Redemption 2 is not perfect. Due to its length, you can get really burnt out, especially if you just focus on the story. It's a very long game, and naturally pacing issues will become a thing as the hours go by, especially since it's an open world game where distractions are around every corner. But that's also a double-edged sword, which I will mention in the gameplay section. Chapter 3 in particular feels very stretched out, as you spend most of your time doing errands for two different families, only for it to go pretty much nowhere, except to push you into a new area that I won't spoil, so it felt like those two families were wasted and there wasn't much depth put into them without spoiling too much. Chapter 6 also loses a lot of that focus that was built up over the 4 previous chapters. Naturally, everything has to come to a close, but it really felt like things just happened to close stories, or because they needed characters to end up like how they were in the original Red Dead Redemption. Yes, I know Red Dead Revolver is a thing, but most people don't, so I'm just going to call Red Dead Redemption the original. Chapter 5 was also very confusing. It wasn't bad, but it didn't really feel like it needed to be there. I think cutting that entire chapter would have helped some of the pacing issues, as it just felt so forced and rushed to me. Nothing of note really happens to the characters apart from one, but you could see that change coming from a mile away if you've played the original. These are just really small gripes though. You really can't complain much about Red Dead 2's story because of how well crafted it really is. I genuinely think the story was crafted almost to perfection and really left a mark on the industry. The characters are written with incredible care and precision, creating some of the most heartbreaking and hate-inducing scenes that I've ever had to play through. An incredible story told in a way only gaming could. Let's get on to gameplay. Wow, that was cringy, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
Our fight will live on.
How's it looking up there?
So Red Dead Redemption 2 has really solid gameplay, but this game for most people will require about 50 hours of playtime to do the story and some of the side content, so as great as the gameplay is, it's gonna get repetitive. There really is not much you can do about that when the game is nearly 50 hours long. The open world is jam-packed with content and people to interact with. You can go and greet the AI, chill with them, or intimidate and piss them off. You can go fishing, hunting, bounty hunting, raid houses and do jobs for gang members, among many other things, many of which I still haven't experienced, and I've put at least 100 hours into Red Dead 2 with multiple playthroughs. Gunplay is really good but feels aged. You take cover, peek and shoot, and that's the loop. It's the ragdoll physics that really sell it for me. Nothing is quite as entertaining than shooting the guy in the leg, walking over, picking him up, throwing him down on a hill, and then shooting him with a shotgun to the face because you're really fucked up in the head. It's beautifully messed up, especially due to the ridiculous detail that Rockstar have put in to make this system as good as it is. AI is pretty good overall. They duck, run, and attempt to flank you most of the time, which does spice up the gameplay loop, but most of the time you will be fine due to the weird health and stamina system. The AI throughout the open world is bloody fantastic though. This is exactly what I mean when I criticize AI in various other open world games. Usually there's more, but it's empty, but Rockstar did it perfectly. Everyone can be interacted with like actual people. This is what open worlds are all about, interactivity in the little details. It's a truly phenomenal world. For some reason, Rockstar was adamant about giving you various items that essentially make you invincible for a short period of time, and that really kills any difficulty or tension they might have created in scenarios where you didn't have access to those items. I recommend not using any of the tonics or anything like that, as it does kill most of the enjoyment and the immersive factor, and felt really unnecessary, but I do appreciate Rockstar trying something new, but I just don't think it worked particularly well here. For me, you can like get food and stuff like that to fill your cores up, but I'm talking about specifically the ones that give you upgrade buffs. Literally, you could take like 15 shots and you'll be fine. It just kind of kills it for me. Unfortunately, not much has changed since Red Dead 1. It is essentially the same game with better graphics that are so realistic that they have horse balls that shrink due to the weather. Shout out to the developer who made that. I'm sorry you had to. Well, maybe you enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't judge. Maybe you're into horses. I don't know. But it was horse balls that shrink during the winter. It's mad. Well, in the mountains anyway. I will say that I do feel like Deadeye was downgraded. In the original, Deadeye felt really awesome to use and the gore effects were so satisfying to look at, but here it does feel like a cheat code to me. I just turned it on in most fights because it was just too cool not to use, but made a lot of shootouts too easy once again, especially because of those tonics. If you can take one of those tonics, you can pretty much have unlimited Deadeye and just keep shooting and shooting and shooting. It kind of kills any sort of difficulty you may have with it, and there's no difficulty levels, there's no easy, medium, hard or anything like that. It's all based on how you choose to use these tonics and stuff like that. Main missions are really damn good, but like I said, Rockstar's gameplay is getting outdated, and you can see that with the main missions. They're really restrictive and irritating when you want to try something more creative or interesting. Rockstar's desperation to pull off set pieces and have you experience tailor-made moments is exactly what this kind of game doesn't need. It can have a few, and don't get me wrong, Rockstar didn't jam-pack the story with epic set-piece moments or anything like that, but it's just the main missions in general are so restrictive in this beautiful world they've made. It's just, I don't know why they do it. The open world is so good, but the main missions desperately pull you away from it, forcing you into linear levels inside the open world, which often results in a mission fail if you walk too far from the wagon you just spent 5 minutes riding on, listening to expository dialogue making you want to blow your brains out sometimes. I just wish main missions worked with the world and not against it. I guess that's the best way to sum that up. Naked Jakey made a bloody brilliant video on Rockstar's gameplay and why it's become age. It's got like 9 million views now or something. I really think Rockstar does need to innovate again, and that's a great video on it. As beautiful as Red Dead 2 is, the gameplay needs to change at some point because it's just getting stale. I personally love the loot, but even I'm starting to feel that loss of innovation. Graphics can only do so much. Weapon variety is pretty lacking as well, but honestly it makes sense. Sure, it would be nice to have more weapons, but for the time period it just wouldn't make a lot of sense to have loads and loads of guns. The guns you do get access to feel great to use, whether you choose your trusty revolver or pump action shotgun. Every weapon feels powerful, as they should, and make the gameplay loop ever so satisfying. So let's talk customization and more in the open world section. Customization is fantastic. You can change your outfits, hair length and styles, your beard or lack thereof, your weight changes, your weapons degrade, your clothes get wet and dirty, among many other details. It's ridiculous. Red Dead 2 is so far ahead of any game in this industry. It's simply breathtaking, and I mean that with no Keanu meme. It's fucking scary how detailed this game really is. The AI, as I mentioned earlier in the open world, is truly a benchmark in the industry. Everyone is able to react to the player, and the player can interact with them with different dialogues and actions. People go about their lives, working, robbing and dying, and that goes for the camp too. This is not some Ubisoft false advertisement where they go to sleep every now and then. These people really work. You see them building houses over the course of the game. It's amazing. The camp mechanics are great for character and getting missions, but the actual camp mechanic where you invest money to make it better really just doesn't work. Nothing really happens other than unlocking the ability to craft some items, which really disappointed me, but honestly, you'd probably want to spend your money on other things like guns. Speaking of guns customization is pretty good. Not quite the level of GTA or other games that fully rely on your customization ability, but the details of those small customizations are amazing and once again pretty scary. Graphically, it's basically next gen. It's beautiful and still better looking than some next gen games and is way more varied. You got cities, you got forests, you got mountains, you got everything. Side missions are pretty great as well and pretty memorable. They all have their own little mini stories, I guess you could say, and there's quite a few of them. And you also have random events that happen in the world that don't really have story attached to them, but they're pretty cool. You can also play checkers, poker, etc, etc. There really is too much to talk about for a video that I want to keep short. I mean, we're nearly half... This video so far from what I've recorded is half an hour long, so I need to cut this down. Guys, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. If you haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2, it's on sale right now. Go buy it and experience it. This really is the benchmark for open world games, but held back by aging gunplay and linear missions. If you didn't enjoy the game and you've already played it and you're watching this, let everyone know your opinion so they can get a fair assumption from other people other than me. And guys, as I always say, watch other reviews, don't rely just on me. I haven't even talked about the actors' performances, the soundtrack, as well as the various activities that I just don't have time to talk about. It's a great package, so go grab it. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy and got to the end of the video, which I can only assume you did, please smash that like button and consider sticking around by subscribing. Thank you all for the support.